Could it be that the meaning of life was hidden in plain sight, not buried in science textbooks, not whispered in ancient ruins, but echoed through chants, scriptures, and the quiet prayers of billions, from the flickering oil lamps of Varanasi to the towering cathedrals of Europe, from the call to prayer in Cairo to the silent meditation halls of Kyoto? Humanity has always asked the same questions. Why are we here? What happens after we die? Who, if anyone, is listening? We search for answers in different ways. Some bow to one God, others to many. Some say the soul is eternal, others say it is an illusion. Some see salvation, others seek enlightenment. And yet, despite the differences, there's something eerily similar beneath it all. A kind of pattern, as if all these belief systems were different maps pointing to the same mountain. But how can that be? How can so many religions born on different continents in different centuries agree on anything? Today we're going on a journey, not just through geography or time, but through belief itself. We'll look at the core philosophies that drive the world's biggest religions, not to prove one right or wrong, but to understand what they all try to tell us about the human experience. Because maybe, just maybe, religion isn't just about worship. Maybe it's a mirror, reflecting who we are and who we long to become. So let's begin, not with a Bible, not with a Quran, not with a scroll or statue. Let's begin with a question. What if every religion was just one piece of a much larger truth? If you were born in the sacred lands of India thousands of years ago, you might have learned that life never truly ends, that every breath you take, every action you commit sets off a ripple in the great ocean of time. And when your body dies, that ripple doesn't stop. It returns as you again. This is the soul of Hinduism, one of the world's oldest and most complex belief systems. At its core lies an idea both comforting and terrifying. Samsara, the endless cycle of birth, death, and rebirth. You're not just living this life, you've lived thousands before it, and unless you break the cycle, you'll live thousands more. But how do you break free? That's where karma comes in. Not the Western meme version, bad vibes come back to bite you, but a deeper law of cause and effect. Every choice you make carries weight. Every intention leaves an imprint, shaping your next existence. You were born a farmer, a king, a widow in mourning. It wasn't random. Your past selves planted those seeds. And your future, you're planting it now. But there's more than just rules and consequences. There's a goal, moksha, liberation, to escape the cycle altogether, to merge with the universal soul, Brahman, not a person, not a god in the sky, but everything, the divine spark behind all existence. And yes, there are gods in Hinduism, millions in fact, but they're not separate from Brahman. They're forms, faces, paths to the same light, like rivers flowing into one sea. One person might worship Shiva, the destroyer. Another might offer flowers to Lakshmi, goddess of wealth. But both are aiming at the same truth, that behind the many, there is one. To live well is not just to obey, it's to understand, to see beyond the illusion, Maya, and remember that your soul is ancient, boundless, and every moment you live echoes into eternity. Imagine being born a prince, gold-lined palaces, silk garments, servants at your side, no hunger, no sickness, no death, at least none that you're allowed to see. That was the world of Siddhartha Gautama, until one day curiosity shattered the illusion. He left the palace walls, and what he saw changed everything. A frail old man, a sick man, a lifeless body. For the first time he saw what wealth couldn't erase, suffering. And in that moment, Siddhartha made a choice no prince had ever made. He abandoned everything, his title, his riches, even his family, to find the truth. Years passed. He starved, he wandered, he meditated, until one silent night beneath a Bodhi tree, something shifted. He saw reality, not as it appeared, but as it truly was. And with that, he became the Buddha, the enlightened one. But what did he see? He saw that life is suffering, not always in the dramatic sense. Sometimes in the quiet longing, the craving for more, the ache of impermanence. But he also saw that suffering had a cause and an end. The Four Noble Truths were his gift to the world. Life involves suffering. Suffering is caused by desire, by clinging to what cannot last. If you release that desire, suffering ends. And there's a way to do it, the Eightfold Path. Not a religion in the traditional sense, no gods to worship, no heaven to reach, but a practice, a way of being, right speech, right action, right mindfulness, step by step toward liberation. Unlike Hinduism's moksha, Buddhism seeks nirvana, not union with the universe, but extinction of the flame of ego, illusion, pain, to be awake, to want nothing, to fear nothing, to be free. And perhaps that's the paradox. Buddhism, often seen as a religion, is also a philosophy, one that doesn't ask you to believe, but to see for yourself. In the beginning, there was a promise, not between gods and empires, but between one man, Abraham, and something far greater, a single unseen God, invisible, all-powerful, eternal. In a world where gods had faces of stone and names that changed with kings, Judaism introduced something revolutionary, monotheism, the belief that there is only one God, and that this God made a covenant, a sacred agreement. You follow my ways, God said, and I will make your descendants as numerous as the stars. And so began a story unlike any other. Judaism isn't just about belief, it's about identity. A people chosen, not for privilege, but for purpose. To uphold justice, to walk in righteousness, to wrestle with the divine. And that wrestling, both literal and metaphorical, is key. Even the name Israel means one who struggles with God. Because Judaism doesn't demand blind faith. It embraces questioning, doubt, debate. The Talmud, one of the most sacred Jewish texts, isn't a list of answers. It's a conversation, an argument across centuries, but at its heart is the Torah, the law, 613 commandments, guidelines not just for worship, but for how to live, how to treat the poor, how to welcome strangers, how to honor life, even in suffering. And oh, there has been suffering. From exile in Babylon to the ashes of the Holocaust, the Jewish people have endured unimaginable pain and yet held on to hope. Not blind optimism, but a fierce, defiant belief in tikkun olam, the duty to repair the world. To be Jewish is not just to believe in God, it's to partner with God in making the world more just, more compassionate, more whole. And in that mission, there's no waiting for heaven. There's work to do here. 2,000 years ago, in a dusty corner of the Roman Empire, a child was born in a stable. No palace, no ceremony, just a mother, a carpenter, and a promise whispered in the dark. His name was Yeshua, but the world came to know him as Jesus. He grew up not as a soldier or king, but as a poor, wandering teacher, telling stories about lost sheep, mustard seeds, and prodigal sons. But beneath the simplicity was a message so radical, it changed the course of history. Love your enemies, forgive those who hurt you, turn the other cheek. Not commands from a conqueror, but invitations from someone who saw pain and chose to carry it. Because at the center of Christianity is a paradox. A man crucified like a criminal is worshipped as God. To early Christians, this wasn't defeat, it was redemption. Jesus didn't just die, he chose to die, to take on the brokenness of the world, and in doing so offered humanity a gift, grace, not something you earn, not a reward for being good, but a love so deep it meets you at your worst and lifts you anyway. Christianity isn't just about belief, it's about faith, not certainty, but trust that through Jesus' death and resurrection, there is forgiveness, there is new life, even after death. And this belief spread like wildfire across continents through persecution, cathedrals, empires, and reformations. Millions found hope in a man who never led an army, never wrote a book, but changed the world by teaching that the last shall be first. Christianity teaches that salvation isn't earned through rituals or bloodlines, but through believing in something greater than yourself. That the universe has a plan, and that at the center of it is love. And perhaps that's why, for many, the cross isn't a symbol of pain, but of possibility. In the silence of a desert cave, a man heard a voice that shook the world. It was the year 610. The man was Muhammad, a merchant known for his honesty, but destined to become something far greater. He had retreated to the cave to reflect, to make sense of the injustice, greed, and chaos he saw around him. But what he found was more than answers. answers. He found a calling. According to Islamic belief, the angel Gabriel delivered to him the first words of the Quran, not from man, but directly from God. And with that, Islam was born, not a new religion, but a continuation, a restoration of the same truth preached by Abraham, Moses, and Jesus. The word Islam itself means submission, not out of fear, but out of reverence, to surrender one's ego, pride, and desires to the will of Allah, the one God. No statues, no intermediaries, just a direct relationship between the believer and the divine. At the core of Islam are the 5 pillars: Shahada, the declaration of faith; Salat, 5 daily prayers anchoring the soul; Zakat, giving to the poor because wealth is a trust, not a trophy; Psalm, fasting during Ramadan to remember humility and discipline; Hajj, a pilgrimage to Mecca, walked by millions, but spiritually shared by billions. But beyond rituals lies a deeper philosophy, Tawheed, the absolute unity of God. Everything in creation, stars, oceans, hearts, atoms, moves in harmony. And to be truly at peace is to align with that rhythm. Islam sees life as a test and the Quran as a guidebook, not just for the afterlife, but for how to build justice, mercy, and balance here. It honors knowledge. It commands kindness to parents. It forbids arrogance and cruelty. And though the world often misunderstands it, those who live it see it not as oppression, but as freedom. The freedom of knowing your purpose. Because in Islam, to submit is not to lose yourself. It's to find your place in a far greater design. Not all truths ride on the backs of empires. Some are whispered in forests, painted on caves, or passed through songs sung at dawn. Because religion isn't always institutional. Sometimes it's ancestral. Take Sikhism, born in the 15th century in the land of Punjab. Its founder, Guru Nanak, didn't claim divinity. He simply saw that humans were caught in illusion, blinded by ego, divided by caste, chained by ritual, and he taught something radical. There is no Hindu, there is no Muslim, there is only the one God, and we are all equal. Sikhi blends deep meditation with fearless action. Its scriptures are poetic. Its people wear turbans not for decoration, but as a crown of humility and service. Then there's Taoism from ancient China, not a religion of commandments but of flow. The Tao, or the way, can't be seen, heard, or defined. It is the quiet force that moves the river, bends the tree, and beats the human heart. To follow it is not to dominate, but to yield, to let go of control, and live in harmony with nature. It's less about worship, more about alignment. And then there are the indigenous beliefs, from the Aboriginal Dreamtime of Australia to the animist rituals of West Africa to the sacred oral traditions of Native Americans. They may differ in symbols and names, but they share something profound, a relationship with the land, a reverence for the ancestors, a belief that everything, stones, rivers, animals, fire, has spirit. In these traditions, the divine is not above, it's around, it's within, and when you view the world through that lens, you don't just use nature, you walk beside it, because in the end, whether it's a temple or a forest, a shrine or a story, human beings have always searched for something bigger, a way to belong, to remember where we came from and why it matters. So now we've walked through temples, mosques, forests, and mountaintops. We've listened to priests and prophets, monks and mystics, and after all of it, one question lingers. Are we all saying the same thing? In different languages, not the same dogmas, not the same stories, but the same longing, the same human ache to understand where we come from, why we suffer, what happens when we close our eyes for the last time. One religion speaks of karma, another speaks of grace. Some call it salvation, others call it enlightenment, but all of them seem to circle the same invisible center, like stars orbiting something vast, silent, and unseen. Is that center real, or are we just projecting our hopes into the heavens? That's the beauty and the mystery. Religion isn't just about God, it's about us, about how we try to make meaning out of chaos, about how we cope with pain, about how we love and how we lose. And whether you pray 5 times a day or never at all, you felt that quiet question at some point in your life, when someone you love dies, when the world feels cruel, when you stare at the stars and realize how small you really are. That question, is anyone listening? Maybe the point isn't to find one final answer. Maybe it's the search that shapes us. Maybe it's the humility of knowing we don't know that keeps us open, curious, and connected. Because the moment we stop asking, the moment we think we've figured it all out, that's when we stop growing. So whether you find peace in a holy book or in the wind between trees, whether your God wears a crown or has no face at all, know this: you're not alone in your wondering. You never were. From the beginning of time, humans have looked upward, inward, and beyond, not for power, but for purpose. And maybe, just maybe, that search itself is sacred. And if this journey made you pause, reflect, or feel something deeper, don't forget to check out our next video. Because if you thought this was thought-provoking, the next one might just change how you see everything.